She said, 70 is 70, she said. Judy, 70 is the new 50. And it's just a number, and I remember that, yeah. And the people that I know who are older and full of life look like they were having a good time. The courthouse queen, who made $47 million a year, had dark secrets. Former workers sued her for treating older people unfairly. They said she fired people for being too old. Others said her show avoided certain people in court to keep a certain look. Behind all the justice war claims of unfair treatment and crazy workplace problems, more than 20 workers quit in 5 years. Then came 2020. She disappeared as gossip magazines spread lies about brain disease. She fought back with a $5 million lawsuit. But her 2025 comeback on streaming showed something nobody expected. The truth about her change is more shocking than anyone thought. Judith Susan Bloom was born on October 21, 1942, in Brooklyn, New York, just as the world was still dealing with war. Murray and Ethel Bloom were the kind of people who didn't complain even when times got tough. Murray was a dentist. Ethel worked in an office, and they made a life together in a city that never slowed down. Brooklyn back then was packed with people, noisy, and filled with families trying to survive after the mess of World War. By 1946, over 100,000 families across New York City were still waiting for decent places to live. Rent was expensive, food was limited, and prices went up by a crazy 14% in 1947. Judy's father did what he could with his small dental office, but money was always tight. Her mother, Ethel, often made clothes from leftover fabric pieces just to keep the family going. Judy, still barely 5 years old in 1947, helped with housework while air raid sirens screamed through the streets every month like scary alarms. From a world that hadn't quite calmed down, when she was just a baby, her father left home to serve in the army. It was 1943, and the war was still going. That meant Ethel was left alone in Brooklyn with a little kid, forced to handle everything during blackouts and food shortages. Judy, even as a 1-year-old, lived through the stress of ration stamps that only allowed 48 points a month for canned food. Her world was filled with stress, responsibility, and sirens, and it shaped her. By the time her father returned in 1945, millions of American soldiers came home different. Murray was no different. Judy was now 3 years old, and her once quiet home had turned into something more tense, more uncertain. Divorce rates were going up across the country, up nearly 50% by then. And while her parents stayed together, the emotional weight never left. At just 4 years old, Judy was already organizing games and managing other kids in the neighborhood. She didn't just grow up fast, she had no choice. In 1955, something happened that stayed with her. At 13, during a casual family get-together, she heard whispers that her grandfather, Murray's father, had once been a bootlegger. Back in 1932, during the Great Depression, he smuggled alcohol around Brooklyn to get by while unemployment jumped to 24%. The story went that he hid bottles beneath the floorboards, using dental supply routes to avoid getting caught. In 1934, police almost caught him during a sweep that arrested over 500 people, and the family almost lost everything. Judy was shocked. It didn't fit with the clean-cut life she thought she knew, but instead of hating it, she became interested. She started reading about criminals and court cases, including Al Capone's 1931 trial. And something lit up in her. She didn't just want to stay out of trouble. She wanted to understand it, control it, maybe even stop it. By 1956, Judy was 14 and starting at James Madison High School in Brooklyn. It was a huge place with over 3,000 students. But she stood out quickly, not because of grades. Her GPA was around 2.5, but because she had something else, presence. She joined the debate club and started winning. By 1959, she had 5 regional wins under her belt. But it wasn't all smooth. That same year, she skipped a dozen classes to protest outdated dress rules that banned girls from wearing pants. In 1957, she led 20 students in a cafeteria walk out over bad food. Teachers didn't know what to make of her. She wasn't on the honor roll. Yet she debated civil rights topics like segregation years before it became common among high schoolers. She even got detention for faking notes to skip gym, claiming she had moral problems with the uniform. And while gangs were forming fast across Brooklyn, over 100 by 1958, Judy stuck to her own rules. never joining anything she didn't believe in. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was just being Judy. By 1960, the civil rights movement was starting to shake the country, and Judy left Brooklyn for Washington, D.C. She signed up at American University, studying government. Back then, colleges still tried to control women. Curfews were strict, pants were forbidden in class, and any trace of independence was watched. But Judy didn't back down from it. She joined the Pi Sigma Alpha Honor Society, one of the few women to do so, and publicly challenged male professors on women's rights. While others hesitated, she spoke up. She graduated in 1963, 3 years after starting, at a time when most women were still expected to be secretaries, nurses, or housewives. But Judy wasn't interested in what was expected. She was interested in what was fair. After graduation, she returned to New York and entered New York Law School, where things got even tougher. By 1963, women made up less than 5% of law students nationwide. The halls were filled with stares, questions, and casual cruelty. Professors didn't take her seriously. Male classmates told her she didn't belong. Still, she stayed. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, and Title VII made discrimination in hiring illegal, including sex-based discrimination. But schools hadn't caught up. Judy had to navigate all of it on her own. She worked part-time as a legal secretary during law school, where one day, almost by accident, she discovered evidence of company fraud. Someone had faked financial documents, and while it never made headlines, it made her rethink everything. She didn't want to be just another lawyer in a big office. She wanted to do something that mattered. In 1965, she graduated with her law degree and passed the New York bar exam on her first try. That was no small thing. Pass rates were around 70% at the time, and the legal world was still deeply hostile to women. Judy applied to firm after firm. At least 5 rejected her outright, some without even giving a reason. She threatened legal action under Title VII even before it became a common tool. In 1972, Judy Schindlin had already walked away from a corporate law job 5 years earlier. She left that behind to raise her children, Jaime and Adam. But that year, a law school friend told her about an opening in New York City's family court system. She took the chance. That decision would throw her into the middle of one of the most broken systems in the city. Over the next 5 years, she handled thousands of cases involving child abuse, domestic violence, and juvenile crime. Some say the number was over 20,000, but that likely includes her later years as a judge. Still, during those early years, the courtroom was brutal. The 1970s were already unstable, and she found herself battling a system full of corruption. Her no-nonsense style clashed with judges who wanted to look the other way. Juvenile crime was going up. The 1974 Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act had just been passed, trying to keep kids out of adult jails, but enforcement was inconsistent. Meanwhile, she was also living through her own personal changes. She divorced Ronald Levy in 1976 after 12 years of marriage. A year later, in 1977, she married Jerry Sh, but none of it stopped her. She kept going after abusers, exposed fake foster care records, and pushed reforms that actually reduced repeat offenses. She worked in a city where child neglect cases were heartbreaking and growing. Reports of domestic violence rose by 20% during that decade, and she saw every angle of it. This period built her reputation as someone who didn't flinch, even when everything around her was falling apart. By 1975, she took on a case that changed everything. A powerful businessman was accused of neglecting his child, and most prosecutors wouldn't have touched it. But Judy didn't back off. She won the case. Even as anonymous threats started rolling in, some warned her to drop it. She didn't. Her refusal to play by the rules of money and power shocked her colleagues. The case happened just after the 1974 Juvenile Justice Act came into play. That law was supposed to protect children. But it didn't always work when the accused had deep pockets. Judy's victory led to the businessman losing custody and paying fines over $10,000. That sent a message, especially to those who thought the courts would always protect them. She started to gain a reputation for going after the elite. But that came with personal cost. Ironically, she was going through a custody battle of her own after her divorce. Her work, though, made a real difference. That one case helped push local reforms that dropped repeat crimes by 10%. For the child involved, it broke a dangerous cycle. In 1978, Judy took on something even bigger. She was asked to lead a task force focused on juvenile crime. It was one of the most aggressive reform efforts the city had seen. She was still working as a prosecutor at the time, but now she was also leading a team that had the power to expose what wasn't working. And it didn't take long to find out how bad things were. Her investigation found administrators who were making money off youth detentions. She confronted one man directly, and he was eventually convicted. In $1,980 he was fined. $50,000. 3 others were fired. Her work cut